The episode title is officially Off Center.
It works. It works.
All right. Hey everybody, welcome to the Let's Talk Student Ministry podcast. My name is Noah Bello. I'm the student pastor of Tesh Baptist Church in Breaux Bridge, Louisiana.
And I'm Nikki Lee. I'm a youth leader here at Tesh Baptist Church.
And behind the camera is Mr. Jonathan Levesque, but we call him the boy.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
So today we are representing Blanchard's Barbecue. We are not sponsored. I just have them on a cup.
They're really good.
They are really good. And so instead of fueling my caffeine addiction, I'm just going to have regular coffee and water. So apparently that's the thing I should be drinking more of. So
I always say that you have to make coffee with water,
So I guess whenever you're drinking coffee, you're technically drinking water, right?
Exactly.
I'm decided to wear our youth jacket. Last year I was really heavy on advertising for it, but now that we're kind of rebranding and everything, we're going to get completely new jackets and everything. So once we start selling merchandise again, this jacket is going to be in our Legacy collection. That's what I'm going to call it. Where the Legacy collection is going to contain anything that we've had sold in the past. So like this year for YEC, we have YEC 2025 shirts. So starting next year, we're going to start selling YEC 25 as Legacy shirts.
Okay.
And do that. So that's just a little update on some of the things that we have going on. I thought you were going to say something.
There wasn't anything for me to add right there.
Okay, cool. We can.
So buy a Legacy shirt.
Give us your money. I can definitely take more breaks this time. Make it easier for you to cut through it too, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not cutting that though. That was gold.
Okay. Let's talk about this last week of ministry that we just had. I think that it was a pretty successful week. What do you think?
I think it was amazing. I think I know we're probably going to say that every week.
Mm-hmm.
No, every week's not amazing, but this week was pretty up there.
I will say I think that I think Wednesday nights are getting better. I think they are.
Well, I think that's a big part of you organizing it and keeping it. I think moving Let's Talk About It to the front was a good idea. I think that it really works there instead of worship, let's talk about it. It just breaks it up.
Mm-hmm. It also gets them like in a better mindset for worship and everything.
Yeah, that was kind of the first time we did it. I was like, this is a perfect time for y'all to think about something while you're worshiping.
Yeah. The lessons have been going well.
But this is a good series you're doing. I really like it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason why it's been better for me is because I've been practicing more time management skills. So I'm actually spending more time on my lessons and on everything else, and less time on less important things. And so it's making it easier for me to like break up when I need to get stuff done. And like I'm finishing my lessons like the day before Wednesday nights now. So on Wednesdays, I barely even work on it, and I can actually be like, I can have a full day having had thought about it and ready to talk about it by then.
You can also spend time with the students. That was something that you were in seminary and trying to do this whole job, and it was overwhelming, and you couldn't spend time with the students, so you felt disconnected from the students, and now
right.
You get to spend more time with them.
Yeah, like that was something that I dealt with at the beginning of this year, because I started full-time ministry, full-time seminary, and my now fiance and I were like just starting to get serious in the relationship, and so
we started Celebrate Recovery Ministry. There's so many things we were starting. Yeah. It was a lot.
And now that I feel like we've got a really good stride. Celebrate Recovery went really well this week too.
Unfortunately, I missed it.
Well, I think
the first one. I think
I'm gonna say it wasn't good because she wasn't there.
Probably.
Like that's not why it was good. I think that it's good because of the new structure that we've been going with and the organization, and the fact that that the others, I was gonna say names, we're not allowed to say names of people from CR, but the others who are involved in leadership were very cooperative, and having those paper schedules have been a really big plus for me, at least.
They have. I know you just said like it's not good because I wasn't there, but the truth is we got to see a little bit of growth because I wasn't there. Like someone got to step into a role that I do, and you know, when you set something up and you develop a program, you're always we talked about this either in the last podcast or the one before that, the bus theory of like making sure that there's always someone in place to like take your spot if you're not around.
It's in case you get hit by a bus, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that, but but I agree with the concept. I don't know if I like it's like a good intention, bad invention thing for me at least.
Well, I learned it in the business world, not necessarily the Christian world. So there's not a
You're
Christian mentor out there going like, if you get hit by a bus, like it's not.
I've always called it the Jethro model.
Okay.
Do you know why? Okay, so it's in Exodus chapter 18.
Oh, I thought you meant like the Clampets.
No.
I'm real hickish.
Jethro was the father-in-law of Moses, and in Exodus 18, he goes to visit Moses, and he actually comes to drop off his kids because the land they were in was the land Moses used to be in, and he left whenever he ran away from Egypt to go there, and then whenever God sent him back to Egypt, he traveled to Egypt to get the people and came back. And while he was passing through, Jethro intercepted him and dropped off his kids. And Jethro was able to spend time with him and see the way that he's taking care of the people. And what he noticed was that Moses was driving himself insane by trying to tend to the needs of every single person in the nation. And so Jethro said, what you're doing is not good. You're going to wear yourself out. So elect for yourself 12 leaders, and of each of the 12 leaders, have them take 1/12 of the nation and have them elect leaders for themselves so that the small issues are dealt with by the small leaders and the big issues make it to you. And that kind of thing. And so it's made me really...
We do know that trying to manage a lot of kids and people
right.
can get very overwhelming.
It's made me recontextualize the way that I'm thinking about the ministry. So every time that I'm putting a ministry program together, which at this point I'm working on 3 right now, I'm always thinking about leadership. I'm thinking about the Jethro model and how can we follow that and kind of match that. So next week, whenever we have our leadership meeting with Celebrate Recovery, and I advocate for a certain person to be in leadership, now they had a day to act as a leader to be evidence for that.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, that kind of just worked itself out because I wasn't planning on not being there, and I actually there are 2 people, because we want to start the landing, which is the Celebrate Recovery for the youth. And so in order for us to do that, I had to be able to rotate out of leading the women. And so I had somebody in mind for that, and I still do. But when I suddenly couldn't be here, I threw it out to both of those people, knowing that we were talking to one of them about, or that we had been talking about putting up one of them for leadership.
Yeah.
And so one couldn't be here that night, and then the other one was just like, yep, got it. And like I sent her the guidelines, and she was like, I already got them from Noah. And I was like, okay, fantastic.
I remember she was all worried about it, and then she came and talked to me, and then I was like, thankfully Celebrate Recovery is so efficient in the stuff that it has, and I've already put together an extensive ministry plan, so everything you need to know, I already have it on paper. So just like, here, take this copy and then read it out and just do that.
Right. And that, leading group is probably one of the easy, it's especially when she's been sitting in a group for a while now. So, and it was also, I think it must have been pivotal for her too, because she just made a year.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I think that the fact that you have really spearheaded a lot of organization between all the ministries that we're doing has been really important.
Yeah, and I was going to say that as of right now, the young adult ministry is going really well. Had a really good couple of weeks.
As I could tell by the chicken smell when I came into the room.
Yes, they're getting fed, and I'm feeding them well, okay? I think I shared about this last week, but God's really been speaking to me about that ministry specifically. About all the ministries, but it feels like he's using the young adult ministry as an example because it's the one that's not growing in numbers right now. It's growing in other areas.
Right.
Last night we did a lesson on John chapter 6 when Jesus said, I am the bread of life. And I talked about what is the message of Jesus, and I compared that to, we had a discussion right afterwards about the Lord's Supper. What we do now is we start with a icebreaker question, 2 worship songs, then I'll do a short message, and then we'll do a breakout group. And it goes really well. And yesterday was all about Christ and like everything was so heavily Jesus centered. And I shared that what God's been speaking to me about is the fact that I've been so like absolved, I guess, with I don't know if absolved is the right word, but like so absorbed in building the ministry and getting a media program going and working on Celebrate Recovery and organizing young adults that I kind of started losing the baby that was in the bathwater, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's the right one. So like,
well, that's why we tell people don't throw it out.
I accidentally felt like I was throwing out the baby Jesus, you know what I mean, from the bathwater.
Jesus.
And last night I was getting a little self-conscious about the fact that we had only 4 people here, and I had to remember that like you could look at it from the perspective of, oh well, this thing that in your head needs to be so much bigger has only 4 people, or you could look at it from the perspective of, hey, these 4 people came with the sole purpose of worshiping and talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful, and that's what we need.
Well, that is so easy to get discouraged when, you know, not to keep bringing up Celebrate Recovery, but Celebrate Recovery was like that for when we started. And for the first year, I was like, we're never, ever. I said, I feel like we started a program that this community really needs and no one's ever going to show up. And then we talked about this before, where it's like you get your ducks in order. You know, if you build it, they will come. It's very filled of dreams. Ministry is very filled of dreams. Sometimes you have to build it before you can actually, you know, people will come. God's not really going to send people to something that's not set for those people to come to.
You know, never seen Field of Dreams.
Well, just
I'm gonna have to make like a list of movies that I've never seen, because I think in every episode at this point we've talked about movies that I haven't seen yet. You know,
Mad Max was last week. This is Field of Dreams is like a baseball. It's like such a good movie. It's a Kevin Costner movie.
Okay, yeah. You know what I really liked? What was that? I think it was Kevin Costner. Was it Kevin Costner? It was McFarlane USA. You ever seen that? No. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's about a guy starting a cross country program.
Maybe he was in it. Is it a running movie?
Yes.
Cross country running.
Yes, it is a running movie.
What's that from? Greece. That's from Greece.
Oh my gosh.
Long distance running.
But yeah, we could talk about this for a while. All I was going to say was that I remember whenever we first started reorganizing the Celebrate Recovery program, and we had that meeting, I said it felt like we were starting to focus so much on everybody's own opinions about it that we weren't focusing on the main things, which was A, that this needs to be a Christ-centered program, and B, that everybody in here, we may be disagreeing on stuff, but the core value that we have of it is the passion for the ministry itself. So let's find where we can, let's find stuff that we can agree on and build something from that. And I think that's kind of what's helped it become, like, it's becoming a really beautiful community. I got to be honest with you. I'm really liking it a lot.
I know. I love it. I remember starting it, and this happens a lot for me with ministries. When I start them, I have a heart for that ministry, but sometimes I don't think that it's really going to do me any good. It's not for me. I'm doing this ministry because God has led me to do something for others. And so this is one of the first ministries where I feel like I get to be just as broken in group and be human. I don't know how you feel sometimes, but sometimes I feel like I have to be like superwoman or like a superhuman and have it all together. That's not a super, have it all together all the time, and I really don't. And so this was the first ministry that I got to kind of let the walls down and just be me.
That reminds me of earlier this year whenever me and you talked about how it feels like we've kind of swapped places. Because I have been in a completely different place in my life, especially in ministry. I'm actually seeing the value of showcasing my brokenness, not only to the students, but also to Celebrate Recovery. Like at the last CR, you know, we had something happen with a teacher, and so we had to put on a video, and it was about confession. And the video actually went on long, and so I actually had them cut the video where I actually gave the notes for the rest of it and kind of explained the second half. For whatever reason, I felt that it was in the proper context for me to share something about myself that I could tell that meant a lot to the group. And what I shared was that I talked about one time when I was on vacation and I started having like an emotional moment. And
just a time when you withdrew yourself from the...
Yeah, and I had to walk away from the crowd because I was upset about something. And then my amazing and incredible fiance came to be with me to see if I'm okay.
Just in case y'all don't know, he has an amazing, incredible fiance.
I will continue talking about her until the day that I die.
She is incredible and amazing. She's so sweet.
I will keep talking about her to the day that I die.
She's never just the fiance. She's in the incredible, amazing.
She needs to know that she's better than everybody else.
She kind of is. She's wonderful.
Yeah, she's wonderful. But she came to see me and make sure that I'm okay. And I realized when I was talking to her, especially when I came back and like was doing an inventory on that and like revisiting that time, that the thing that was upsetting me wasn't even upsetting to me. What was actually happening was that for whatever reason, my mind decided to use that as like an opportunity to draw attention to myself and basically just start throwing a tantrum for no reason. And then I remember I said, I know I might be the only person in the world that does this, but I also know that like sometimes that's the thing that you do. You just, you get upset and then you just want to stay upset.
Yeah.
Just so that people can pay attention to you.
Yeah.
And I said, but I'm the only one that does this, right? And then somebody in the ministry actually started laughing when I said that.
To that point, one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is like the brokenness that we see in youth, and one of the behaviors that you see in children and in teenagers is that they will act bad
Mm-hmm.
to get attention because it's the only way they know how to get attention. It's the only way they know how to have mom or dad or friends look at them.
Yeah.
And we've experienced a lot of that to where we've been having to break it.
I feel like just with how much that I've worked with them, I feel like that I already have enough experience to like get a psychology degree or something.
Yeah,
with all the conversations that I've had with all these kids, and the point that I was making with that, it's actually kind of to go back into what we've been talking about this past week. The point that I was making is that I'm finding that by being more vulnerable and showcasing my brokenness to the ministries and to the people I'm speaking to, even on Sundays whenever I preach, which I understand it's bold to some people, but I've had people tell me they appreciate how vulnerable I am up on stage. Mm-hmm. It's so much easier to relate to the preaching and to actually like realize that this isn't a holier than thou type of person. This is just a person explaining the Bible to you,
right, and
relating it to their own brokenness. And I think there's a lot of power and value in that,
Yeah, I agree. And not just, you are very vulnerable. Usually when I'm listening to you preach, I'm going like, oh, all right, we're bringing that up. Okay, not your personal story, just stuff that it's hard to address. I've heard so many pastors go like, man, I really need to do a tithing message and I just don't want to do it. And you were just Sunday preaching about grace and you were like, let's talk about tithing. And I was like, whoa, okay. Like, it's just really good. I appreciate that. You, myself, and Brother Reggie have often talked about some of those taboo subjects that people are afraid to address in the pulpit. Mm-hmm. And you have, like, the Bible tells us to be bold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why it's so easy for me to talk about that is because I've always had this perspective that everything in the Bible is like, and this might sound familiar, Jonathan, as I said earlier, everything in the Bible is one interconnected web that's all connected and all building towards something. It's I was actually reading something yesterday about the book of Isaiah, and it was saying that the book of Isaiah is actually fulfilled in the book of John, and I could go in one day into like all the ins and outs of that. But both of those together are pointing to a means to an end, with the end being the cross. And then the rest of the Old New Testament after that is a new means to an end being the second coming of Christ. Everything is like this one interconnected web that all points to the same thing. And so it's really hard to talk about some things if you're going to be like shy about other things. I don't know about anybody else, but whenever I read what the Bible says about how the church lived out their faith, the Bible always mentions generosity.
Sure.
It is constantly bringing up giving and sharing and tithing. That is all over First Corinthians, all over
Acts.
It's all over the book of Acts. It's all over First Thessalonians, and First Timothy, talking about locking arms in fellowship with your people, being willing to share and all of your possessions. And so my thing is, if you are going to, if I have that perspective, if I'm going to talk about living out your faith from the perspective of the church, then I cannot avoid generosity.
Sure.
And what better way to talk about generosity than explaining the tithes?
Yeah.
You know? And then at the end of it, you always, I had the challenge of roping that back into saying, like, you could take everything I just said and replace the word tithe with anything.
Yeah, I thought that was really good.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it all goes back to grace.
Sure.
You know, because it's just an expression of the grace that God has given you.
Yeah, it's the gratitude.
Right, right. And so, you know, I actually find that discussion is pretty relevant based on the lessons that we taught and youth this week. Okay, do you want to talk about your real talk?
Yeah, real talk. Do we want to talk about how it raised some questions? Probably one of the first times that we ever had a theological, like, hey, what do you mean by this? Which I thought was important.
Yeah, it was the first real talk. I think it was the first thing that any of us, as in me and you, ever did that caused another one of us to, like, press the pause button and be like, hey, what are we trying to say here?
Right. Yeah,
You
and
know?
I appreciated that because, like, I went back, like, watching it, like, I could totally see where that was. And the interesting thing is that the part that really made it sound like that was the part that was like a flub.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in the real talk, I made a comment. I was like, you know, we're talking about where do we find hope? And sometimes, yes, we find hope in people and community and all of these things, but sometimes in a moment where we aren't around people, we need to see and feel God, and we can look around us. I mean, the Bible's very clear and has so many instances where God was a brush of wind or God was fire. Like, we find God in nature. I mean, he created it. Mm-hmm. And everything is of Christ, and Christ, you know, everything consists of Christ. And I was talking about First Colossians. It was the first time I didn't actually reference the scripture, which probably would have helped. And you caught that someone might see it as me thinking that God and the universe were the same thing, like some spiritual nonsense. And I didn't catch it. But I had just made a statement that God is, you know, you can see God in the flowers, you can see God in the trees, and the wind, and the sky. Oh, and your shirt. And then I was like, not your shirt. And that was the one thing that all the kids were like,
that became a running joke, yeah.
Well, and then it became like a discussion point, and I was like, guys, I just accidentally said shirt.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't trying to say, like, well, no, not all things are good, God, because like a bad shirt might not be. That wasn't it at all. But in theory, God made the cotton. So, yeah, but it still was very interesting, that it brought up conversations with the kids. It was one of the very first times, I mean, you and I have done a lot together over the last few years. It was one of the very first times that we sat and were like,
yeah.
And I remember you called me, because I always know when you want to tell me or ask me or tell me something, but you don't know how I'm going to take it. And I was like, hey, can you
just be honest with me?
Just be honest with me. Like,
yeah,
I'm not going to get mad. I want someone to address something, because I wouldn't also want to say something that would lead somebody astray.
Yeah.
I remember when I first came to Tesh, or when I first got back into the church and was getting real big into things. It's common for context error that people think that Mary Magdalene is the same person as the woman who Jesus sometimes cast out demons, sometimes was the one with the draw the line in the sand.
Anytime I've had those conversations with people, anytime there's a woman in the Gospels that did anything that was sinful, people would just assume that was Mary Magdalene.
Yeah, she's like...
It's like, was she just a horrible person?
She was like number one baddie. Like,
I was like always following Jesus, and Jesus was like, oh, not again.
But because that was a common misconception, there's the word I was looking for, a common misconception, I thought of that too. So I'm up there one Sunday morning, and right before I sang a song, I kind of talked, it was a Sunday morning. Right before I sang a song, I was telling a story of Mary Magdalene, but I was actually talking about the lady who was being stoned, and Christ said, you know, he who is without sin, Christ, cast the first stone. And
that wasn't Mary Magdalene.
No, it wasn't. I know, but I said that. And so someone after church came up to me, one of my good friends, and said, hey, just so you know, that's a common misconception. but that's not the truth. And I'm someone who prides myself on my knowledge of the Bible and how much I've studied over the years. And so I went, and then that night I made sure to address it, because back then the pastor would have me sing in the morning, at night, like I was singing all the time. And so I made sure to address the congregation, because we were still having night church, the old way.
The old days of night church. Yeah.
And so I just made sure to like call myself out on it. Like, hey, I found out that I was wrong in what I said this morning, and it's important for me to say that I was wrong.
Yeah.
And so that is important to me. So when you brought it up, like I wanted to know. Yeah. Because I didn't see it, that wasn't my context, so I didn't see it in that way.
Yeah. We're going to talk about what we were talking about with God consists of everything and all that stuff, with that situation. I've learned a lot about and been doing a lot of thought on the concept of creation even before this. And what's interesting is that there's this concept in the Bible called the immanence of God. Okay, yeah. The word immanence is referring to the duality between God being eternally separated from us in form, while also still being with us all the time. So he is close but also far away. The immanence, and that's kind of its relationship with creation. It says that all things were created through him, and that he is the anchor to the universe. When you look at the Trinity, I've mentioned that the Father commands creation, the Son completes creation, the Spirit contains creation. I wrote that down when you said it so I could make the coolest post with it. Like it has stuck in my head since I heard you say it on Sunday. Oh, my bad.
No, I love it. I was like, it's such a powerful, easy.
Yeah. It's the three persons, one being concept. And what I always try to make sure people know is that there is a separation between God and creation. God is still there because of his immanence. Christ is among creation, the Spirit is there, but God and creation are not one and the same. Because once you do that, then you enter into something called pantheism, which is the idea that everything around you is God. And so it's this but it's easy to get the wires crossed. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because one thing I'm learning more and more as I'm teaching, while also studying the different heresies and studying the different false beliefs that people have, is that if I want to avoid people getting false beliefs as much as possible, then I need to be incredibly calculated in the way I say stuff.
Sure.
I'm finding that I feel like I'm always thinking ahead of what I have to say nowadays, to the point that I've gotten a lot better at it. So whenever it comes to preaching and everything, I always spend so much time on a verse studying it to make sure that I'm actually getting the information right. I spend 15 hours in sermons at least, especially when I'm preaching on a Sunday, because I need to. And then you throw it all away at the last minute. Isn't that what you did Sunday? You were like, I worried for 15 hours, and then. So what happened on Sunday? Of those 15 hours, I spent 10 of those hours studying. Right. And studying and learning and looking at the Greek and comparing that to the Hebrew, and comparing the Greek of Galatians to
you're
paralleling it, but also I started this thing now where whenever I'm writing a message, I actually will I will actually be reading off of 4 different Bibles. I do the New King James, the Christian Standard, the English Standard, and the New International, and then occasionally I'll throw in the NLT, because all of those translations have their own strengths and weaknesses. And whenever you're trying to study and teach the Bible, then you want to be as close as possible, and you want to be able to compare stuff. And sometimes you'll look at a verse that's worded differently, that uses slightly different vocabulary in different parts of the Bible. So you can see okay, well, where's the commonalities here and all that stuff, right? Yeah. To finish up my thought about the amount of time I spend in the message, I spent the first 10 hours on just comparing everything, and the last few hours was actually about me compiling my thoughts into what I want to say. And the anxiety I got was at the end of that, whenever I was like, okay, well, how do I put that in a bulleted outline? And I was freaking out, okay, well, what order do I want to go with? And I said, well, I spent all this time figuring out what talking points I want to make and studying that. It's just kind of in there now, And so that's whenever it was just relying on God to put the bricks together for me. So I didn't exactly throw it all away on Sunday. I didn't mean it like that. I know. I was wrong.
I'd meant that you kind of said, well, the structure that I have it isn't necessarily what God's pushing me to do today.
Yeah.
But to talk about, let's talk about it, and Real Talk Tuesday and that whole video, the truth is so Tuesday I had a work emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were a few things that had to get done that day with ministry. Like we were having some troubles posting the first episode. And so I was working towards that. And then you'd ask, are you going to get the Real Talk Tuesday video up? Because we were being so consistent and everything's getting, some traction. And I was like, oh yeah. And so, I'm trying to save one of my clients' servers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get home and I'm set back up at work, and then I just go, Real Talk Tuesday. And so I walked outside, and I already knew what I was going to be talking about the next day with Let's Talk About It. But I had not stopped long enough to I didn't prepare. Normally I prepare. I recorded a few times, but I was like, I need to get it up, but I need to get back to the server problem. And so I recorded the video really quickly. I mean, I probably posted that in record timing.
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't have done that. And that's just a lesson and that's unlike me to do that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, make sure my duties were held out, but I should have stopped and gone, all right, what are you trying to say here?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's easy. So it's really easy to accidentally fall into, even if it's like one single wording that you mess up can derail a person. I mean, I'm not saying that's what you did, but miswording even one thing sometimes can derail a person's faith. And what I think is cool is the fact that I feel like we have gone a little bit off topic, but it's all actually applies to the main point of our Wednesday and our Thursday night message.
Sure. Because
on Wednesday night we talked about the letter to the church in Pergamum in Revelation 7:12 through 17. Mm-hmm. And the problem they had was that they were outwardly standing up for their faith, but they were going back home and worshiping false gods and teaching each other false teachings and everything. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I challenge the students to is that I don't think anybody in here is becoming a polytheist or a pantheist and any of that stuff, but I do think that a problem a lot of us have, especially, I wasn't going to say especially this generation, but everybody has this, doesn't matter the generation, is the problem of sin causes us to live a double life.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And so, I remember there was a huge gasp in the room whenever I just, 90% of the people in this room probably watching adult film,
right, or watching things that are inappropriate.
And not just that, but anything. Like I said, some of us are probably picking fights at school. Some of us are probably not sharing the gospel, even though we are calling ourselves Christian and Christ commands us to share the gospel. I tried to, and then at the end I said, just to make sure I'm covering all avenues here, every single person in here, including myself, is prideful.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to I remember when I was putting it together and then when I was teaching it in my head, I was trying really hard not to make them feel like they're horrible people because of sin, and instead making the point of our sin forces us to live a double life, and that we have to be repentant and to continuously turn back to Christ so that he can restore us. Mm-hmm. And which is exactly what Christ commanded the church of Pergamum, when at the end he says, be repentant and I'll give you a white stone with your name on it, which I had talked about was symbolic of being victorious in Greek culture.
The remembering stones.
The remembering stones, yeah. And then on Thursday night, the way that it all kind of tied in is because on Thursday we talked about the message of Christ and about how he came to teach a message of satisfaction. Mm-hmm. It's a message that it's not a feel-good sermon, but actually that him being the bread of life, no matter what you go through, he is here to restore us and help us through that. And I use examples of celebrities that had openly said that when they got to the top, they found out that it was just lonely and that being famous isn't the thing that satisfies you. I talked about how it's a message of salvation and a message of sanctification. And so, I just like how everything we've been doing has kind of been following a similar theme. It's been cool.
Yeah, and I think even with the Let's Talk About It, kind of like the Mary Magdalene story, it was important for me you and I both feel like it's very important for us to be vulnerable with these kids. And so I could have gotten up here and said whatever I wanted, not whatever I wanted to say, but I could have corrected it, said it, taught it, and that was fine. But I thought it was very important to address what you saw in it so that they, if any of them made the connection, but also to teach them what that even means.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's so important that we teach these kids that, you know, the universe, like, that's not what we're trying to teach you. God is the creator of the universe, but
he is not the universe.
Right. Yeah.
I felt that like a good way to tie that all together, and this is the last thing I'm going to say before we move into the last segment of the show.
Sure.
Was bringing up that, you know, you can experience that God is in the universe by looking at like different things in creation, and about how I have always experienced and seen God in creation whenever like I look at babies and I look at children and everything, you know.
Yeah, you said that Wednesday night, and all I could hear in my head was "because he lives." I was like, he's literally saying a hymn right now, because that's what it says. Like, how sweet it is to hold a newborn baby.
And I remember holding my nephew the day that he was born, and then like I just got this really emotional feeling. I could feel God was there, and it's like I don't know how else to put it other than that, like, I know and I see and I've come to realize that everything about us individually is knit firmly together by God, and holding a baby feels like I'm holding something that God had just worked on, like a loaf of bread right out the oven, you know. Like, so like it just felt like, I don't know, I could just still feel the power of God like holding him, and it's just like, man, I can't believe people don't believe in God, but then we'll acknowledge the existence of babies and
They're like, what created this to its core, to its atom, to its everything. Yeah, the earth, the universe, it's too intricate for it not to be created by something much larger than ourselves.
One of my favorite quotes was from Andrew Huberman that talked about how he came to have faith in God was as he was studying the mind, and he looked at like this blown up 3D map of all the neurons in the mind, and all he could think of was, wow, like it is incredible to see how intricate this microscopic thing that's inside of our heads is. How can I ever in a million years think that there isn't a God, while also seeing how bizarrely intricate and complex this is? This couldn't have just happened.
Right,
you know?
But also the patterns. Like, when you can see a similar pattern across almost all of creation, and it's like, when you keep digging down, it's pretty incredible.
Last week we told the story of the ministry, and we talked about in that we would also talk about the brokenness that we're seeing in this generation. Would you like to start with that?
Yeah, I can. What we've seen recently in this group, and it's not even just in our kids, I see it in the children that are growing, that will be our kids one day, our youth, and but I see it out in the real world. When I'm working with youth, you know, I call her my firstborn, but she's my godchild. She's in college now, and you know, I watched her grow up, and I watched what her high school experience was like, and what her home life was like, and you know, the brokenness that's happening within these kids is really just, it's sin, obviously, at its core. But I think what has brought, you know, you and I often talk about, like, where did all these kids come from? Like, we looked up and there were 40 kids, and they all...
And there's just more coming.
Yeah, they just keep coming.
I had just a bit of a praise report yesterday. A girl that had visited us a couple of times texted me saying that she's interested in coming to YEC, and she's asking for questions. I was giving her information about it. And then she said, hey, I've been thinking about it. I talked with my parents, and I decided I'm going to start coming on Wednesday nights, and I want to get involved. And then I was like, girl, the ladies are going to love having you around.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah, it's because, you know, we've talked about like we had like 12 children, and then all of a sudden after YEC last year, we had
35 to 40
regular kids here. And they're not just coming to hang out, they're coming to learn, and they're the most genuine generation that I have ever seen sitting in a youth room learning about God and worshiping God and actively serving the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think, that comes from a generation that is so, like, they're the byproduct of so much sin in the previous generations that, if you go back to 3 or 4 generations in the church, we were so strict that you sin, that's where your Leave It to Beaver families are.
Yeah.
They were so strict, and then as we loosened up, babies were having babies, and you've just got this broken generation, and they are saying enough. And it's beautiful to see them. It's not their parents saying, hey, why don't you go to church? It's these kids.
The kids are trying to get the parents to come to church.
Going like, I don't want my life to be this forever.
Yeah.
And this is a broken generation, and that's something to address for the parents and the grandparents. But this is a generation who's like, I don't want to be broken.
Yeah.
My generation was a little bit better with being able to be open with mental health and the struggles of a abusive home or an unloving home or abandoned home, whatever that looks like, or bullying at school, and then it just, your generation, which would be I think the one under my generation, would be, hey, we're not going to take it, or Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
And then the newest generation is like, our parents are messed up. There's so much mental health. Like, they're coming to me with mental health talk. And so I love that this generation, they just are like, I don't want to be broken.
I think it's working in, I feel like, lately I've been getting more involved in the other generational ministries. And I think obviously one thing that every generation and age group has in common is brokenness.
Sure. Since the age of sin.
Since the age of sin. Since
Eve and Adam.
Yeah, since that fruit was eaten. And it's interesting how it's kind of all barreled into what it is today, and it's always been as it is today. I think that we just have the opportunity to see how it's affecting kids, while also being involved in a ministry that's as good as it is. And I'm not here to toot my own horn. This is all in the power of God. But
sure, absolutely.
I remember when I first started going to church when I was in high school or something. When I first started taking church more seriously in high school, I remember getting involved, and I'd spend time with the youth pastor and starting to get to know the people over there. And I just had this inner yearning to get to always be there, because of how serving the church seemed to be the thing that fulfilled me the most.
Sure.
And I thought that was an indication of a calling, which I think obviously I do know there was a calling there. But I left that whenever I went to college, because I left that church and that program for a short time, and in that time I ended up in a campus ministry in UL that had such a genuine fellowship and a genuine love for Christ, with true discipleship happening, that I got to be among those people and realize that, hey, this isn't just me. Like, everybody else is experiencing, like, there's something about this ministry that everybody is here and they feel like they're part of one larger family. And they're feeling what it feels like to be in a loving area. Like, there wasn't a lot of drama, and I found out that it was just because people loved it there so much they didn't want to cause drama.
Right.
But also the leadership was so organized that stuff was dealt with on the spot. And so when I started coming here, I remember thinking, like, I want to recreate that feeling for a youth ministry.
Yeah.
And nowadays I'm realizing that feeling needs to be recreated on all levels, which is why I'm doing things the way that they are. And so all that all builds up to is that brokenness is common in every generation.
Sure.
It's just that we built this program specifically with the mindset of, I want people to come in here and feel welcome and feel loved and feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves in the best way possible,
Yeah.
And there's just something about that it makes you, the thing about that is the Holy Spirit, is God.
Sure.
I think I like to think about the girls, some of the girls that we've seen so much growth from, even the guys, but there's a certain girl I have in mind that I wasn't going to say her name, but like the amount of like transformation I've seen in her in just the past couple of months, and the entire reason why is because she just decided to get involved and to be around other Christ-centered people, be around me and you who challenges her all the time. And she's finding so much fulfillment there. It's just like...
You want to know what's interesting about that, though?
Yeah.
Is you didn't say her name, but I could put that story on about 5 of our girls. Like, and I say girls because I work with the girls more than I work with the boys, but...
Oh, the boys? Oh, don't even get me started on the boys, how much I've seen there.
I mean, in the past, especially the past like 3 months or so, I've seen some of the guys step up in service. More of the guys step up in service. You know, girls always want to... It's real easy to get a girl to like do something and be in front of a crowd. Like we love attention. So, but to see some of the guys just as excited as the girls, it's been fun. But I think one of the things we did too is, you know, so all the ways I can say that my generation and the generation before it was so closed off about mental health and emotion. This generation feels things, they feel everything. Yeah. And they feel maybe a little too much. And so one of the big topics that you and I spend time teaching and just one-on-one with them is, hey, these emotions, you're allowed to feel what you feel, but let's put these emotions into perspective. You know,
as I like to say all the time, like, stop trying to control your emotions, because that's not going to happen. But instead, let's find a way. As I say a lot nowadays, I find myself saying this specifically a lot. Let's reframe our focus here. Instead of it being about how do you control these emotions, instead we should reframe it to, okay, this is something I can't control. How do I live with it? How do I work with it? You know, how do I respond to this properly? That is like when you look at the Serenity Prayer, accept the things I cannot change. Yeah. I can't change how I feel about this situation, but I can change how I respond to that feeling. You know? I
mean, absolutely. And the other part is when you're a teenager. Look, when you're an adult, if you don't have the right tools in your toolbox, you don't always process things correctly. And so a lot of times when one of the girls or guys will come up to me and they'll want to have a conversation about something, about how they're feeling, or they feel like they've been disconnected from this, or whatever the issue is, I'm like, well, what's your part of it? Again, something we learn, some people don't learn until if they go through recovery, but what's your part? There's always 3 sides to every story, and that's mine, yours, and the truth. And so
it's like on Wednesday when I said you have to be willing to have a mirror put in front of you,
right?
And be able to see, okay, like in some way I played into this, even in the smallest way possible. There's still some fault that I have there, you know.
And it's interesting enough that the girl, like, if some of the youth will only come to me when they're ready for me to like call them out, because they know, like, if I go talk to Miss Nikki, she's not just gonna like hug me and say it's okay, you're right about everything. I'm gonna say, well, what'd you do? What are your flaws? Have you reached out? How can you fix this problem? And but it is interesting to me that more and more of them are coming and saying, like, all right, I'm ready to look at myself in the mirror and fix this.
Well, what I think it is that, like, if you look at the older students that have spent more time with us and that have gained the maturity to kind of recognize what's happening, is that we don't give them exactly what they want, because like they come to us wanting to be justified, even if they're completely in the wrong. When I will tell you that there was one time that a student came to me and I said, and then they told me the situation, and then I said, okay, I'm gonna be so for real, bro. I'm being as objective as possible when I tell you that you are in the wrong.
Right. And this is why.
And this is why. But what's interesting, and I think the thing that's like really affecting these kids in the positive way, is they are used to being told that they're wrong and then being punished and being cast out by their parents or by their family, or just by their schools. What we do is we tell them that they're wrong, but we love you because so am I. Right. You know, like we're all messed up. You know.
Yeah, we're all human. We're all sinners by nature, but saved by grace. So.
I'm also noticing what's interesting is that and I probably should have just known this because it's just the nature of things, is that way more girls come to you than guys come to me. I think that's just because girls are girls.
So much more emotion. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying guys don't experience a lot of emotion, but girls, we feel a lot. Like, and you were talking about like you growing up and having that college ministry experience. I had that as a youth group. Like, if I wouldn't have had the youth group that I was dating a guy who invited me to church one day, and that became my family, a family that I did not have. And I was we had 50 probably at our highest number, and we traveled the South and sang and did all kinds of great stuff, and which was wonderful for me because I got to realize my talent. And but I was the one messed up kid in the youth group. I was the one that everybody's like, she's at it again, wild child over here, like, love Jesus, Nikki, like trying to keep me in line. And so when I came and started working with this particular group, I was like a whole room full of Nickies as a teenager. And it's to see that change in today's kids is like, all right. So then I feel a personal connection to go, I don't want these kids to struggle through their young adult life and when they don't have to. Yeah, like
something that I've noticed is that the kids in this ministry, everybody will go home and everything, and things are starting to wrap up, and even some of the lights are off, and yet still we have kids that here just want to hang out. And we're like, hey bro, I gotta go home. Like, I love you and I love it here, I do. I gotta go home. And they're just like, they would rather be here, even if nothing's happening, because this is like their comfortable place. And I remember I told Brother Reggie that happens, and he's like, I'm so amazed that that's how these kids are. When in my mind, it's like I was like that when I was their age. Whenever I was in youth ministry, when I was in the college ministry, talked about in both of those instances, I was the one that wanted to stay past the lights being turned off.
Me too.
I was the one that would rather be there and be at home, even though my home life was great. I know it was different for you. My home life was great, and so I'm thinking, like, let's look at today. Not only are they feeling this, but also they have a hard home life. And
some of them have great home lives. Like, I don't want it to sound like if any of the parents are watching, they're like, all of you are terrible. It's not that. It's because we do have some kids that are just, they're here, they have great home life like you, they have your story and a similar story, but you'd rather them hang out here and want to stay when the lights go out than with another group from the high school, like, 'cause schools these days, you want them here. And so that's a big win for Christ, for these kids, that they're not hanging out, behind the school smoking pot all day long.
I'm at a place where a part of me wants to just keep the doors open as long as I'm here when I'm working throughout the week. But I know for sure that if I keep the doors open and people start showing up, then I'm never going to have time to work on stuff.
Yeah, that's what Brother Reggie has all the time.
One thing that I'm just thinking through an idea that I've been having is being one of those ministries that has a coffee shop, like a little pop-up coffee shop, and then having students come in and actually be able to work the coffee shop. And then I could go work in one of the offices in the church. And so, I can have somebody here that's paid to be here, that's working, and that's also interacting with the people. And I could make sure that person is discipled and is willing to disciple the people that are here, to still create a healthy environment and still have some leadership here maintaining and monitoring the behaviors, while I can still get stuff done, and then I can come back and everything. And so it's something that I'm actually thinking through right now. Anybody's listening and getting excited about that idea, it might happen.
Legacy shirts and coffee shops, that's what we're working for here. So I think the most important, I found I say that a lot, I think one of the most important things that we provide for these kids and the kids that follow them is just a place where they always feel safe and vulnerable, and a place that teaches them about Christ's love. And we're so open and honest with them that they probably feel a little uncomfortable sometimes because we're so honest with them. But I don't care. When we're in Sunday school, my girls know, if I'm we can sit here and stare at each other until one of you talk, because I know you're experiencing it. Or when we talk about relationships to the whole group, I'm like, y'all aren't gonna end up together. This is not your forever. And they're like, yes, he is my forever.
There's a small percent chance that they will.
Yes,
you gotta add that.
I don't ever say never say never, but you want them to know that their life is not centered around this relationship, especially for girls. because I mean that becomes our whole world. I mean, we just this past week we saw so much brokenness over a breakup within our students, and I was speaking of, I was so proud of that one youth that sang Wednesday when they didn't think they could. They'd been asking people to sing for them because they just felt so broken, and she stepped up. You know.
Yeah. And it's just a lot to say, and I think some of this can be stuff we can push to next week. But
did we cover everything?
I think so. Yeah. I was just gonna I was gonna say a closing thought for that, and then kind of talk about some I'm starting to think that maybe the last section could just be talking about like changes and plans that we have and other ideas, and then announcements.
Sure.
So we're gonna do that. To close off what we were talking about is that one thing that I am finding is vitally important in a ministry is, I have been told that, the pastor needs to keep a distance between himself and the rest of his people. And I think that there is a good and a bad side of that. Okay? The good side of it is that whenever Emily and I get married and we have children, I don't think it'd be good or healthy for me to say that the kids can come over at any time that they want, because they might walk in on my wife breastfeeding or something. Like, there has to be privacy there that I have to maintain. I have to have a personal life to be healthy. But I also need to find a healthy balance between that and actually being actively involved in my own community. And I think that's like where there's I'm not calling anybody out because I just don't know A, who's listening, and B, this is actually how some people feel. But from talking to some more traditional pastors and some of the older generation, even some newer pastors, they don't put effort into getting to know their own people. Some churches are being treated more like TED Talks than they are actually sermons. Some pastors are not actually ministering and actually connecting in fellowship with their people. They're preaching on Sundays and then locking the office for the rest of the week.
And that ends for different reasons. The older generation, I can tell you, they feel like they're not allowed, kind of like I was saying earlier, we feel like we're not allowed to be human. And the more we connect with people and the more we let them get to know us, the more they see our cracks. And so that's one of the reasons. And the other reason is because we have a very antisocial demographic today. Like, this generation is, because all we know is social media, and from a distance at an arm's length, it's easier to get up there and be inspiring.
I'm gonna name drop real quick just because it's important in this story. Whenever I was growing up, and even when I first started ministry, I kept a distance and wasn't very vulnerable with the students because I was so afraid that I would be vulnerable even about little things, and it would lead to me getting fired, because I know stories of people saying something even slightly emotional, and then the rest of someone in the church gets upset. And it's like, okay, well, I guess we can't talk about emotions in the pulpit.
Right.
It's woke or something. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago, and I was sitting right here. It was after youth, and I was talking to somebody, and then a few other people were talking to me, and someone was on the drum set, and there's a lot happening. And Isabella comes to ask me a question. And then I look at her, and she asks me, at the same time, I'm 1,000 voices here, and I said, Isabella, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm getting overstimulated right now, and I'm very stressed. Can we talk in a second? And she said, of course. And I looked and said, guys, I raised my voice, not in a bad way, just to get people to hear me. I said, guys, can we one person at a time, please? I want the drum set turned off. It's an electric drum set, and it's right next to me, so I'm gesturing this way if you can't see it. There's an electric drum set. As I just turn the drum set off, put headphones on, I don't know.
Right.
Let's line up, and I can deal with this one person at a time. And then afterwards, I talked to Isabella, and she said, I just want you to know that I really appreciated that you said that. And it wasn't because, I just appreciated that you were nice to me about it or anything. It was I don't feel so weird when I'm around you, because I have anxiety all the time, and I have all these problems. And to find out that my youth pastor that has everything together, and from everyone's perspective has everything together, and is doing well in life and all that stuff, also just has emotional breakdowns. That's why I thought it was important.
And gets overstimulated.
Right.
We've laid that platform to where all of these kids, we understand anxiety, we have anxiety. It's funny you say that, because Hannah the other day was here, and someone was playing the drums and someone was on a guitar, and they're never playing the same song. So it's a bunch of different songs, and someone asked her a question, and she goes, "I can't answer right now. I'm really getting overstimulated." And I went, "Okay."
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate that they know that we understand that. So they're just not freaking out, because I don't want especially the older kids in leadership to respond to younger kids in a way that is angry or frustrated simply because they're overstimulated. I don't want us to do that, because we could do that. We could have the tendency to do that we're teaching them boundaries and how to respond in those moments. And it's good. That's really all we had for that topic. We can always explore more about it later. But let's talk about some things that are happening around here. Sure.
I'm excited about this podcast. The first episode should be releasing today. Still figuring out the platforms, but as of right now, we know for sure YouTube, and I'm gonna try Spotify. Okay. We could try that out later. We're working on rebranding.
It's funny that you say it's going to drop today, because this episode will go up.
It will drop
3 weeks.
3 weeks ago. It will have dropped 3 weeks ago. So all the things I'm saying might happen will probably have already happened. It was like the po' boy sale would have happened last week at this point, I think. Right? So the po' boy sale is something that we're about to do. YEC is happening, and we are incredibly excited about it. There's a lot of hype for it. And we are really excited. I'm really excited because I'm changing the way that we do YEC, because last year it was all focused on getting kids in and evangelizing to them, watching them get saved and then discipling them through that. But this time the focus is on the core group and then building a fellowship among them to try to tighten up any loose ends we have. And then we have our Disciple U, is what we're calling it, in March. And the more I think about it, the more excited I get, and also anxious, because I realize it's in 6 months, and that means I have to start planning it. And so I've been working on that.
You and I are such different planners.
It's very involved. It's a very involved thing. So I need to start talking about that. But it's really excited. I already have some merchandise ideas to push out for that. We have a young adult ministry that's on the rise. They want to go to Collegiate Week next year, so that's going to be a big thing. What else?
We'll have our Christmas play this year. That's will be an annual thing.
We have a Christmas play. This is the first time I've heard about it.
Yeah. Well, you knew we were going to do one every year.
Yeah.
But we have one of our students who. So the whole concept of our Christmas play is that it's in a toy store, and so toys that didn't get bought for Christmas. But one of our students are going to be an elf on the shelf, and so every time the lights go down, they'll be somewhere else in the thing. So anyway, but it's going to be fun, and the kids really enjoy it.
I've always had this idea for I've had this idea for Christmas play. I really want to do one year. I think it's
the SNL thing.
Right. So it's like just hear me out, right? Live from,
I love SNL.
Live from Bro Bridge. It's Saturday night, right? And so it's like 4 or 5 skits, short skits or something like that. Every student will play a different character, and each of the skit will either be super serious or super emotional or super funny. So it's not exactly SNL, because it's not all trying to be funny. But at the very end, the last skit is a longer skit where all the characters come together for Christmas one morning, and they have something happens. Maybe Santa walks in or whatever, or maybe the pastor of the church comes and has Christmas with them, or maybe one of the skits can be that it's about a pastor who's struggling with a family that's disconnected, that he wants to pull them back together for Christmas.
Can those be the Coneheads?
That'd be crazy. But then Christmas comes around, and all the characters are all in that pastor's family, and they all come together, and then there's a moment where someone gets saved, and then all the family drama is solved, and then after that we play a couple Christmas songs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against it, but it has to be written.
Yeah,
that's another thing.
I'll work on that after everything else I have to do. So
right, that's because we have so much spare time.
Yeah.
But so we do have a Christmas play. We'll start working on that soon, and then YC. I got my YC shirt on from last year.
Yeah, the YC shirts this year are going to be really cool.
I think that's
about it. Yeah. Socks for today. I'm wearing a Bugs Bunny Looney Tunes socks. It says USA. I'm pretty sure. I actually don't even know what this is supposed to reference. Because I got a lot of USA Looney Tune themed songs. Is it supposed to be patriotic? But some of them are on medals, and so I don't know. But
There was an episode of Bugs Bunny where he was a track star. So it could be that.
he's a runner. He's a track star. Um,
Long distance running.
Okay. So, Nikki, would you like to give us some advice before we head out?
Yeah, just like always, just love Jesus and make good choices. What about you?
Okay. Don't stop letting people not help.
Don't stop letting people.
That's a reference. Let's see if you can catch where that's from. But anyways, that's it for today, guys. I'm really glad y'all tuned in, and I'm really enjoying this. So I guess this is the podcast signing off.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.